even at a certain point, like he would say lots of stuff that would hurt me, and I would be like, oh, this is, becoming emotionally abusive. He's saying stuff to me that are just not nice. Like, he would question me, or whenever I would say something, he would, like, in public, like, doubt me. Oh, did we go there twice, or was it 3 times? Like, whatever. It was stupid little things that he was just picking at.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm revealing the 3 top ways to rebuild a relationship and stop struggling. My guest Sharon's marriage was very lonely. She felt starved for love and intimacy. So she flipped her end of the script and said some things that she'd never said before. Today, her marriage is pure bliss, and she enjoys the passion and how meaningful it feels. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. But first, let's uncover the 3 ways to rebuild a relationship and stop struggling, because if your relationship has been struggling for a while, you're probably feeling pretty exhausted. I just remember how hopeless and scared I felt when we'd been struggling for years and nothing was working to make it better. Not marriage counseling, not books about relationships, not working on communication. None of that worked for us. It's such a big disappointment to go from feeling like you're with an amazing person and you're excited to spend the rest of your life with them to wondering what happened to that guy, and feeling lonely and neglected and even stupid for falling for him in the first place. Now that I'm back with that amazing guy that I fell for, and I'm excited to get to spend the rest of my life with him again, these are the 3 things I wish I had known how to do to rebuild it. This is what I would ask myself if I could talk to myself when I was feeling at the lowest point about my struggling, broken marriage. Number 1, what are you grateful for about your husband? I always knew I was supposed to be grateful, but I didn't know what that meant, except to say the words thank you when I got a present or someone did me a favor. I mean, you're definitely supposed to do that. Duh. And I knew I was supposed to realize how much I have compared to less fortunate people, and therefore to stop wanting anything else, or at least stop mentioning it. I thought that being grateful meant settling for the way that things were and giving up on what I wanted, which felt dreary. Acting grateful seemed like just that, acting. So being grateful just seemed like another chore to me, and it seemed fake. But I see gratitude so differently now. I like gratitude because it has magical powers. It turns an ordinary meal into a feast, and an ordinary man into my hero, and an ordinary relationship into a lifelong romance. Listing what I'm grateful for shifts my focus. And since what I focus on increases, just doing that makes a dramatic, positive, immediate change in my marriage. And it makes John respond to me so much better too. When he feels appreciated, he wants to do even more for me. And that has started a virtuous cycle where I'm grateful and he's inspired to delight me every day. And then I'm grateful for that. And then he's delighted and inspired to do even more. It's also an easy way for you to end the struggle in your marriage. It's the easiest way I know. Here's how you can experiment with it. Think of just 3 things that you're grateful for about your husband. Maybe it's that he's very even keel, or that he drives the kids to school, or maybe he rakes the leaves or works out to keep fit, or that he works hard to support his family, that he's playful or funny or thoughtful, or that he's sweet to your parents or your siblings, that he fixes your phone when something isn't working. Just 3 things. That's all. That's all you have to think of. Then tell them to him. You can text them if you want. And then think of 3 more things tomorrow, and the next day too, and the next, and the entire week. If you want to experiment, It's the fastest, surest way I know to rebuild your relationship. The second question is, are you having any fun? Are you having any fun? I think there's an old song. Are you having any fun? Well, of course, it's hard to be grateful when you're not enjoying yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, that may feel like you could be enjoying yourself if only he would stop being so hostile or distant or lazy. That's the illusion I was under too. But in my experience, the real steps to rebuilding your relationship can't even really start until you get happy. Like so happy, like dancing and laughing and singing happy. So, how do you do that? Well, get this, only you know. What makes you dance and laugh and sing? It could be, and it probably is, doing something frivolous. Maybe it's something that is only going to make you feel giddy, and that's it, which probably seems like a big stretch right now. And it is an act of courage to reach for your own delight when you're suffering and struggling in your marriage. So, this is your invitation to be brave by sitting on a swing or swinging your hips in the hallway or getting a makeover or getting all muddy in the garden or whatever it is that's going to remind you how good it is to be alive. And I invite you to do it again tomorrow or something else that also makes you happy. And the next day, and all right, the whole rest of the week, just like the gratitude. Number three question: what makes him trustworthy? Well, when you're trying to rebuild your marriage, it means that something has fallen apart. And usually it's emotional safety that's fallen. It could be, and it usually is, that the trust is broken. Maybe you don't feel safe because you don't trust him. It's hard, it's painful. And that was what I thought too when my marriage was struggling. I couldn't trust him, so I had to do everything myself. But it turns out it wasn't that I couldn't trust him, it was that I didn't trust him. It sounds like such a subtle difference, right? But when I decided to trust him anyway, well, it turns out he was completely trustworthy, just like I thought he was when I married him. So I had forgotten who I married because I was afraid. I had plenty of evidence that I couldn't trust him, and that blocked me from seeing the piles of evidence that actually I can trust him. And today I do. That seemed strange and it seemed fake at first, but not anymore. When I changed what I was focusing on, I had a completely different and better experience of feeling safe. So it's interesting to think what might happen if you experiment with trusting your man. It takes some courage for sure, but you're here listening to this podcast right now, which tells me that you're pretty committed to having a great marriage. I see women on our campus deciding to trust their husbands every day. They rebuild their marriages so that they're better than ever. So if I can do it and they can do it, then why not you too? If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest Sharon's marriage was very lonely. She felt starved for love and intimacy. So she flipped her into the script and said some things she'd never said before. Today, her marriage is pure bliss and she enjoys the passion and how meaningful it feels. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Sharon, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate giving me the opportunity to share what I've had with lots of other women. Because that's like a big feeling. Once you start doing this, you just want to let everybody know about the six intimacy skills. You want everybody to do it, everybody to try it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity for that.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Well, take us back to the bad old days when you were feeling starved for
Okay.
intimacy. What was happening? What was going on?
Okay, so I would say that we've always had a very nice, good relationship. Our chemistry was good. It was just a typical, very good relationship. And then when things started going down was I had a baby that, when he was 3 months old. I was so busy with the baby, and I now I know that I was starving myself from self care, but I didn't realize it then. And I was trying, that was my third baby, and I was trying to do everything, keep up with work, cooking the right meals, keeping the house clean, keeping everything together, and do it all. And suddenly I just started feeling so lonely and just I didn't get any help unless I literally had to beg for it. And he just got very busy with his phone, very busy with friends, and he just somehow didn't pay attention to anything that, and anything to me or anything that was going on in the house. Um,
Okay.
um, and I even had like at a point I asked him like, do you even like me still? Like, is there something that's going on that I don't know about? Um, and he got very frustrated when I asked that question. Um, and even at a certain point, like he would say lots of stuff that would hurt me, and I would be like, oh, this is, becoming emotionally abusive. He's saying stuff to me that are just not nice. Like he would question me, or whenever I would say something, he would like in public like doubt me. Oh, did we go there twice or was it 3 times? Like whatever. It was stupid little things that he was just picking at. So that was like the bad old days. And for me,
Yeah,
that
you
was
must have been kind of mystified about why he wasn't helping
yeah,
out more, and like it's just such an awful feeling, right? When you're so
yeah,
overwhelmed and he
exactly.
okay.
And I was after a baby of 3 months, so I was like, okay, maybe it's the fat of the baby and all of that. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. And it was also a big downer for me because before the baby came, we had this very good spot in our relationship where something just went. I didn't. So now I know why, but then I didn't realize that I was practicing the intimacy skills in my pregnancy, and it was just so amazing. So now when the baby came and everything stopped, it just felt like a huge downer for me. So for example, before the baby, I had like it was during COVID time, so I had this idea of maybe doing a home birth, and even though it was so rare for us to do, just me stating that want, he became all supportive for it. And I wanted like a husband coach birth, and I wanted so many like little things. Like I wanted to try a birthing method. He was just all on. I had so many wants without expectations, and he gave them all to me. He was my hero. Now I know that that was the high point, and that's why it was so amazing. And then after the baby, what a low it went to because I stopped wanting stuff. It came from a place where I thought I'm deserving of it just because of the pregnancy. And now I know I am deserving of it just because I'm deserving, not because of anything.
Mm, I get it. So the pregnancy being, as long as I'm pregnant, then I can deserve, it's okay to want things that
Right.
are for the baby in a way, right?
Right.
But for
Exactly.
me, but now it sounds like you're okay with just desiring things just because Sharon wants
Mhm.
them.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I love that distinction. I love how you went back and just kind of rewrote the history or just relooked at the history through the lens
Correct.
of the intimacy skills. Well, you're like, no wonder he wanted to be my hero. I was expressing
Exactly.
desires with
Yes.
no expectations. Yeah. Yeah, I love
Yes.
it. Okay.
So that was like, so then after the baby and all of that stopped, all the wants, the home birth happened, the husband coach labor happened, the course of, the birthing classes that I took happened. It was all done. And now I was just busy with trying to cope, figuring out life with a newborn and with the other kids in tow. It just felt very lonely and distant. And I knew one thing, like I'm never gonna beg for him to be intimate with me, but it just sort of felt like it was so lacking. So I went on to read. Oh my goodness, so many marriage books, and they were nice, but they didn't change anything for me, honestly.
Oh,
I even took like a very massive, like a 12-week course of, on marriage and all that. And I started it, I was probably 3 weeks in, and then I found your book. I found The Surrendered Wife first, and I started reading it, and then I'm like, she's on to something. Like, it didn't fully resonate with me, that book, but it was onto something. And I remember, I think it was in that book or it was in The Empowered Wife. I don't remember in which book. It said, like, take a look at your husband and see his goodness, like, see some good qualities. And I remember taking a look at him and being like, I don't think I can find anything.
there's
He's not
nothing.
even looking at me. He's on his phone. He's not helping me out with the kids. He's hearing everybody crying and wanting stuff. He's not even paying any attention.
He's letting you
Um,
drown and you're
yeah, so
overwhelmed
I'm
and
like, I cannot find anything good about him. And then that moment clicked for me in two ways. One way was like, okay, so this book is working. She's onto something, The fact that I cannot find anything must be that something's off here because every person has something good. And if I cannot find anything, then must be that this will help me. This book, I don't know how, but this will help me. And then the second part, on the flip side, I felt like, oh my goodness, we cannot go on any longer. Like a marriage cannot last if I cannot find a single good thing, like not even a single positive trait. And I decided I put my finger in the book, and I was holding on to that spot in the book. And I'm like, I'm not continuing to read until I can think of something good about him. And I was like, okay,
oh,
he's handsome, like, okay, we'll deal with that. um, so that was like that was a big moment for me to realize, on a two-sided coin, one side that this is something that will change either in a good way or in a negative way, right?
wow. That's a
So
great insight. I love that you had that accountability in that moment to be like, okay, everyone's got something positive. So the fact that I can't think of anything,
right,
I kind of hear you saying that must be on me. And then you came up
right,
with that he's handsome, which I love. I mean, that's important, right? So
right.
that's you had one thing so far.
At least something. So now I finished The Surrendered Wife, and then I went on to reading The Empowered Wife because I was like, okay, there is the six intimacy skills, because I started binge listening to all of your podcasts and everything. And I'm like, okay, I need to find The Empowered Wife because I've been reading The Surrendered Wife. I need those six intimacy skills. Um, and also, like, on a side note, like, I was wondering, like, I was listening to all the podcasts and I was taking walks and everything, listening to them. And I was thinking to myself, all these women on the podcast had such crazy stories of, breakups or saying I don't love you, and like cheating scandals and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's for them. They're having such a big turnaround because their relationship was so crazy. For me, it wasn't so crazy, so it might not be such a significant change.
That's
But I
right.
decided
Because
I
yeah, your
decided to
problems
give
are
it a try.
different. Yeah,
Right.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah.
So, and I was like, maybe I won't see such a big difference, but I'll give it a try. Like, we'll try this. So, um, then I just started reading The Empowered Wife, and oh my goodness, everything in my life has changed since then. We've gotten to a better place. Like I've said, we've had a good relationship forever since we've met. This has gotten pure bliss. I mean, better than it has ever been before. We've never had that height of connection and, emotional intimacy and all of that. Um, and I think, like, the first thing that I started was with self-care, replenishing myself. And that was a big one. And even now, I've been practicing. My baby is now 18 months, 19 months. I still like have this barometer of my self-care versus my relationship. So
Oh,
I know, like, if something's happening and I'm being annoyed or he's nagging me or, just a little bit, then I know, okay, I check in on my self-care. I've probably not done enough, or, it's my exact barometer.
I love it. Yeah, you just treat that like that's the measure. Like if it doesn't feel that good in your marriage, must be time to check on the self-care. See if you're
Yes,
happy. I love
right.
that.
I'm just going to share with you a little example of what I had with the
Yeah.
self-care.
I'd love to hear
Um,
it.
So this was like really in the beginning, and I was feeling so lonely and sad and just like distant from him. And I decided my self-care was, on my list was to dance. And I tell everybody, please make a list of 20 things, keep it on the cabinet, keep it somewhere where you can take a look at it, because it's important. You forget sometimes. You think you're good at it, and then you're like, okay, no, I need to do
Yeah.
some more here, right?
Right.
So, so on my list was just to dance, no fancy moves, just typical old dancing and music, and working in my kitchen kind of thing. And I was doing that, and he was on his phone. Like, he didn't even look at me, and I wasn't even planning on him looking at me. I was just doing my own thing. And all of a sudden I see him looking at me from the corner of his eye, and he's like, this was such a long time ago, but he tells me, do you want to go make a fire outside, make a fire pit and everything? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like my favorite thing to just, you know. And then and then after that, he tells me, do you want to go bowling with the kids? And I was like, oh my goodness, I had said that I wanted to go bowling like maybe 2 weeks before with the kids. And now he just offered all of them. And when we came home from the bowling, that was all that same night. And when we come home from the bowling, I tell him, thank you so much for such a nice family outing. And he's telling me, oh, thank you for the dance. I was like, oh my gosh, that was like just all in one happening from one little self care.
Wow.
So that was just beautiful.
That is, and what a great it was great confirmation for you that
Yeah.
this self-care thing not only makes you feel better, but then he just wants to pile on, and it
Yes, of
really
course.
led to a lot of intimacy and connection between you. Love that.
Yes, for sure. And
Great job.
then I felt like another big thing for me was just to state my desires, because I realized that it was so amazing before the birth of my baby when I stated all my desires. So I just mentioned to him again with no expectations, just stated my desire that I would love to go on a walk. And I love walking. It's one of my self cares. It's something I've always enjoyed doing. And but he doesn't like it. He does not like going walking. So, and then I just decided, let me try it. Everything that was in your book, I'm just going to try it, just going to see where it goes. And I just stated that I want to go on a walk. And that was that. And I almost even forgot that I asked what I wanted. And then he's like, okay, like a few minutes later, he's getting all ready for his, to go out on a walk. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is
It's like,
probably the third time we've gone on a walk. And this was no flares. There was no begging. There was no, this was just beautiful. We're going on a walk simply. And I realized that things are really, really shifting, and things are
wow.
becoming beautiful. And
Wow.
yeah,
That must have been, it's like so exciting when you kind of get in touch with how much power you have in that
yes,
situation to inspire him. I mean, you hadn't even, you mentioned the walk, but you weren't attached, it sounds like. You weren't trying to
yeah,
make sure he went on this walk with you. You weren't saying, but walking is good for you. It's healthy. We
right,
should do this, or right? Like you weren't arguing. So
exactly.
he just wanted to make Sharon happy, and it sounds like he really did.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, love it. That's so great. What else?
yes.
What other self-care stuff did you do?
So, self care was I went out with friends. I have my whole list of things. I went back to my painting that I've always loved to paint. Another thing was that I love to plant and to like, have like little gardening
Garden.
things in my backyard. And I just, again, it's a self care, and then it mingles in with the wants. And I just stated my desire for wanting to have a proper garden last summer. And then he tells me one day, oh, like, where's your garden? Like, you wanted a proper garden. I was like, well, okay. I didn't want to spend all that money for it. And he was so willing to, do
He
that.
wanted to spend all that
And
money for it.
yeah, and then as he was being so helpful, because he was setting up the entire garden and the gate and everything, and he gave all his time, his entire Sunday off of work to just do the whole garden. And when he finished and he came inside, and I realized that a ground dog has come and eaten up the some of the crops that weren't covered yet, the part that he didn't finish from the garden. And I was like, okay, I was so sad about it. And I stated it very vulnerably. I was telling him how sad I am that I've worked so hard on those crops and now that they're eaten up. And and he was so nice about it. He literally went over to the nursery. He's like, let's go. We're going now in the car. I'm like, okay, where to? We went to the nursery and got like a whole set of new crops. And that was just so heartwarming, where he was, standing up for me, being my hero, me showing what I wanted. And it was a self care. It was just so beautiful and so emotionally intimate,
Oh,
those moments. Yeah.
oh, I love it. I can feel it. I have chills hearing about that. I
Yes.
love how intimate that was and how he just jumps into action to solve your problems. I mean, he can't stand it when you're sad. Now, I'm curious because before I mean, you had your new baby who's is only 18 months. Your baby's only 18
Right.
months, so you still have a baby, really, a toddler.
Mhm.
But how did you have time to do all this self-care and this is not your only child, this
Right. Right.
baby?
So in your book, you say about not having the time for it.
Yeah.
And then you just end up having the time for everything else once you take care of yourself. And it is absolutely like this. I mean, even now when I feel like I'm experienced in it already. But last week Friday was a crazy day of work for me, and I realized I forgot to do my self-care. So this Friday, the past Friday, I decided this is it. I don't care how busy my Friday schedule is. I am still going to go out with my friend. So I met up with my friend. We went out for coffee and lunch, and we had a manicure together. Guess what? Those 2 hours, and I still had time to do everything else.
No
And the week
way.
before, I couldn't even get my I couldn't get my act together to get everything done. So yeah.
Oh, wow. So the week before you didn't actually get all the work done, and this time you had the self-care and everything, all the work got done. Just both.
Yes, yes. It's
Wow.
in the schedule, it's in the calendar, then it gets done, and it is a time expander. You start doing it, and your heart is lighter. You feel better. You feel like you're on top of the world, so you get things done, in that sense. And when you're lighthearted in that kind of way, then you're not so stressed out about the little things, and you just get things done much faster, right?
Now, when you
So.
started doing this self-care, did part of you think like, how is this even going to help? Like, I don't see how this is going to make any difference in my marriage.
So right, I was thinking like that, but almost immediately, like I was reading this book on Saturday, and Saturday night was when I did the first time like a self-care of dancing. The example that I gave you, it had worked almost immediately. That I was like,
Boom.
I was like, okay, no, even questioning that one.
Okay. Okay, good. We're good.
Yes,
Well, I love it. So, what other intimacy skills did you try, or what else did you do
yes.
differently than what you'd been doing before?
Okay, sure. So a lot vulnerability, where I was very scared to state my everything, whatever it was that I wanted to state. I would always like sort of say it in a kind of way that was demeaning or in a controlling way instead of just saying vulnerably what I wanted. So I expressed very vulnerably how sad I was that the Friday went so stressful, and I really wanted it to be better. And and he's like, what do you want me to do? Because he wants me to express my wants. And I told him, just wipe my tears off. And I just, that moment was like heaven on earth, as I can explain. Like, I was being vulnerable, and he was just stepping in and just being there for me. Um, and that's just like, I can go on and on with little examples of how it has changed. Another big thing was like duct tape.
Oh,
I realized like I was saying certain things that I didn't mean to say it in a controlling way. I think I grew up just hearing these kind of things like,
yeah.
whom are you talking to on the phone? And then I'm like, who cares? This is me controlling. And I realized I didn't even realize that that's a controlling thing. And I had to learn to like duct tape that and just, you know, or even in the car a lot, oh, you can go down this exit, and or there's a cop there, maybe you shouldn't drive so fast. And then I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not saying anything. and and it's just choosing intimacy or control, right? That's what you would say. It's
Yeah.
either one.
Now,
So
was it hard to not say those things though?
so once I realized that it was controlling, I was like, I don't want to say it, but it was hard because it just came out so automatically from my mouth, and it was, yeah. So it was hard to stop, and I kept finding myself in the rearview mirror, having said those things, but
Which is
every
progress. That's
time,
always
yes,
progress, right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
progress, yes, yes. So
Wow.
I thought I was respectful and all of that, and not controlling, but these little things they were controlling, and it was demeaning to him. And I also learned to, just like you give the example of the dad playing soccer ball with his child in your book, um, I learned to respect the masculinity of him. He would play with my kids and play sort of like war with them. And he wouldn't let the kids win. And I would always comment on that,
Yeah.
that you're not being fair, and maybe you shouldn't guys play like that. And then I decided, no, I'm just gonna let it be. And and then he tells me, like, that one time where I just didn't, the first time that I didn't comment on their playing war, he tells me a happy wife is a happy life. So,
Oh,
and I just started respecting that this is the way that he plays, and he's building up my son for being a man, and that's it. Just respecting that, my child has a feminine mother and a masculine father, and that's it. It's beautiful that they can have what they need.
so sweet. So
Yeah.
you're making this all seem pretty easy to do, but in some ways, I mean, as a mother, didn't you feel a little bit like, wait, it's kind of up to me to make sure he's not, I mean, this is my tender little person here, like that he's not being too rough or teaching him the wrong things. Like, did that come up for you?
Right. It did. It did. It was very hard. And I decided to choose my faith over fear a lot with that. And in the beginning, when I would watch them play, like even after that first time that I didn't say anything, and he said this, happy
Happy wife?
life is a happy life comment, I decided the next time they played, I wasn't up for that. So I just went into the kitchen and didn't watch them play, as long as I'm not going to comment on anything. Um,
Take yourself out of the situation that's
yes,
like too
exactly.
hard to not
But then
control.
I
Yeah,
realized
yeah.
that he's a good man and he's a good father, and he never did anything to try to hurt the kids or anything. He was just playing war with them, and it was just building them up for who they are. So nothing bad was happening. And
Yeah.
Mama Bear wants to protect her kids, but that wasn't protection necessarily. That was just, that
It's
was trying to control.
interfering with something that is maybe important for kids to learn. It probably is important for kids to learn, right? Because we
Exactly,
see this with
exactly.
a lot of fathers that they play in
Hmm.
ways that upset the mothers or feel uncomfortable to the mothers, right?
Right,
But yet there's an
absolutely.
important lesson for them or important influence. So I
Right.
love that you decided to just open your eyes a little wider and become respectful of what he was contributing in that
Right,
situation.
right.
Yeah.
And I used to have also a lot of talks with him. This was like always, like I am usually well versed, maybe not so now because I'm a bit nervous, but normally I'm very well versed. And I would have these amazing talks with him of how to treat me and, how to take care of the kids. And I would express myself beautifully.
Yeah.
And now these talks are non existent. And he treats me the way I want without the talks. And he takes care of the kids the way I would want him to without the talks and all of that. So
Wait,
it's like
wait,
not worth it.
wait,
It's not worth
what?
it.
It's not where, okay. So we call these State of the Union addresses, right? That's what
Right,
you were going
exactly.
to explain how he could be a better husband, how he could be a better father, and that wasn't working.
Exactly. That it was never working.
It never
It was
worked.
never, it
Okay.
never works, right? We just
No.
try to we try to say the same thing just in 10 different ways and in 10 different state of the unions, right? But it never ended up happening, right?
No.
I would constantly ask him, like, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? And he would say, I don't know, nothing. Typical reaction. That's what I learned, that it's a typical reaction. I just thought something's wrong with him for not feeling.
Something's
I said,
so
every
wrong.
person,
Yeah.
Yes, every person has feelings. Everybody knows what they're feeling,
Right.
and
Right.
and that was part of a lot of my State of the Unions was like, expressing yourself. It's important to express yourself and all of that. And then I stopped, and whenever he would tell me anything about work or anything related to his life, I would just say, "I hear you. I hear you." That was like a big word that it's still part of my language. I would just say, "I hear you." And lo and behold, no State of the Unions, he started telling me how he's feeling. And I'm like, I was so shocked the first time. I had no idea how to react because that was the first time I'm hearing how a man feels. And I realized that when he's not being questioned or controlled, and he just feels comfortable to let go and share his feelings.
Love that. So that,
Yeah,
and it sounds like some intimate conversations would happen
yeah,
from that.
yes, for
Love
sure.
it. So good. So what about, do you have conversations about your marriage now?
We don't need to have conversations about our marriage.
You don't need to.
We don't need to have conversations.
There's no conversations about your marriage?
I was like trying to bite my lips not to say about the empowered wife that I was doing it, and and then after a while, I started telling him, oh, I'm reading this book, Laura Doyle, and I'm liking it so much, and it's so beautiful. Um, like I wanted to become a coach. So, and he was all for it. Like, as you can tell, once I open up myself and I have adapted these skills, he was so ready for it. But then it was me who realized that the timing wasn't right with the baby. So I'm pushing that off for now. But I am actually doing, like what you say in your book about gatherings from the neighborhood. So I'm doing that now in my house. We're up to maybe the third meeting or so, and it's just so empowering and so beautiful. And I've just gone to realize how much power we have as women if only we embrace that part of us.
Absolutely. Gosh. Well, you sure sound empowered, Sharon. I love it. How would you describe your marriage now?
um Literally blissful, blissful. Just he adores me. I mean, even like I had this day where when things were still very bad, there's this day that in our calendar that's like a day of prayer. And that day, if whatever you ask for, literally, we are told is like you're going to get answered for that. And I woke up very early that day and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And all I prayed for was to just be cherished and adored. And I haven't met you yet, but those were the words that I have prayed for. And I think God answered me because then I found your book. So yes. And now
He's
I feel cherished. I feel wanted. I feel like he's interested in me.
wow. Wow, amazing.
He
And then
wants to please me. He wants to be my hero. And I mean, even though I thought I'm respectful, but if I say I'm sorry for not being respectful, and that's like a secret code for going to the bedroom. When you say I'm sorry for being disrespectful, it's like I
it's
don't
a
even
great
mean it that way.
aphrodisiac. No, right? You're just trying to clean up your side of the street. Next thing you
Yeah,
know, you're getting whisked away for
exactly.
some passion. Wow. Okay, well, I love that. That's incredible. So, and what's your tip for somebody who is where you were with like a young child, a baby, and she's feeling like she's overwhelmed and he's not interested and he won't help and she's feeling ignored and she's just so lonely. But she wants what you have now, where there's all this passion and he is taking her bowling and saying thank you for the dance and just he is so interested in you. What's your best tip for her? What should she do?
Um, my best tip is that she should just reading your books. Just read your books. Start with self care because that's an important one. I mean, it was very important for me, and I realized how neglected I was. I was neglecting myself, and really, self care means so much more than self care. It's about making yourself your own individual. And marriage is about two individuals being united. And if you're not your own individual, then this enmeshment won't do any good for you guys. So taking care of yourself is very, very important. Building your own self, differentiating, right? That's the point of the self-care.
Yeah, having something on your paper that's fun, frivolous fun. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The more frivolous, the better.
I love that. I love that. And you did a
Yeah.
great job, amazing job of that. And how many children do you have?
Three.
Three. And
Yeah.
how would you say this has impacted your kids or has it impacted them?
Oh, for sure it has impacted. I mean, the entire energy, the vibe of the house is more light. It's even though it was just a short period of this down feeling, but the kids can feel it. Like there's no denying it. The confidence that I have now when he plays with the kids, like before that, when he would play war with them, they would end up coming to cry to me because they knew that I will stick up for them. Now when they do these games, it's just all fun. It's completely fun. Nobody comes crying to me about it, you know? They know, they pick up on it.
They
And you know,
do.
I feel like the best parenting skills you can do is just working on your marriage because kids feel so content and calm when there's this harmony and emotional intimacy between the parents. They feel safe and secure. So, yeah, it's palpable.
Wow, love that. That sounds wonderful. And do you think your husband changed through this process?
So he has definitely changed, but I think I am the one who changed. Yes. Like that's like that was like a moment when I realized that he was here for me all along. I was the one who was going up and down, up and down. He was sort of stable, but he definitely wants to step in and be my hero even more. So
I love that. And what about you? I kind of hear a theme of you feeling more confident. Is that
absolutely,
how you would say it?
absolutely.
What else? How else have you changed?
I've become my own self, which is a big one. Like I said, with a self care differentiating, that was, I think, the biggest growth for me. Just being so confident in myself. That's like a huge thing for me. And people respect me for that. I can see that, and people will comment on that. And I'm still very humble. It's not like I'm trying to, do anything or brag about myself. I'm not. And just people realize that. And it's very humbling.
It's more interesting to be like you're a painter and you're a dancer, right? You're all these things that are
Right.
interesting and exciting. And it kind of does feed into a cycle of confidence, I would say. It sounds like because you feel more confident because you're dancing and painting and gardening, and then people are like, "Oh, you seem so confident." And you're like, "Yeah, yeah, I am." And not in you're not bragging about it, but you're just that frivolous fun is giving you a spark that makes you more appealing, it sounds
For
like.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Well, what about if you could go back in time and tell yourself what you know now? What do you think you would say to Sharon?
That's a hard one. What I would tell myself. I would tell myself to take good care of myself. I mean, of course, to start reading your book sooner, you know, um, and that I'm deserving of all that. I'm deserving of the self care. Um, I'm deserving of all the wants that I want. It's okay to want. Um, and to be faithful and trust instead of going the opposite direction and then not being vulnerable and trying to be controlling. Um, yeah,
I love that. It's okay to want. It's like your desires are
right.
yours to, it's okay to have them, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, beautiful. You're a great example of that. I mean, congratulations. I have something for you here. I'd like to give you my
Oh,
Best
thank you.
Wife Award. good.
I'm taking it.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Okay, well, you deserve it. You've been very devoted to the skills. I can just hear it all over you, the way you talk, and that you're supporting other women now. You're having meetings. You just exude a wonderful dignity and confidence, and I can tell that your whole family is benefiting from this. So for me, there's no greater accomplishment than to create love in your family, and
Thank you.
therefore strengthening your community and strengthening the world. So
Correct.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's been wonderful and inspiring to hear your story about how you did it, the specific ways, because you had wonderful stories to share with us. So thank you so much for the contribution to ending world divorce.
Thank you so much.
According to a study at Harvard, and this was horrifying to hear, if you know a couple who's getting divorced, you are 75% more likely to get divorced too. Woo! It matters who you listen to, which is why over 7,000 women like you who think that having a great marriage is important have joined our free Adored Wife group. The Adored Wife group is a launch pad where you can meet our certified coaches and discover the best next steps for making your marriage last and thrive. It's 100% free to join. Just go to lauradoyle.org/group right now. This is a private group, and it's not for everybody, but if you are a wife or girlfriend who thinks that having a great marriage is important too, we'd all really like to meet you. So go to lauradoyle.org/group right now to join us free. That's lauradoyle.org/group. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, we're going to discuss how to respect a husband who hasn't earned it. What do you do then? In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my New Year's resolution to stop eating cookies was actually more of a suggestion that I can now safely disregard.